Hi everyone, I'm Suzanne Henriksen, founder of the Crafty Cask and our online craft alcohol marketing bootcamp. Our whole mission is centered around celebrating and supporting craft makers just like you through marketing education, marketing services when you need them, content to help grow craft alcohol categories, and events, including our popular virtual tasting experiences that we'll be talking about in a panel we're hosting for this conference, all about why engaging high-value virtual tasting should be a permanent tool in your marketing toolbox. But you're in this session now, so let's jump into our topic on creating great content for social media and beyond. I'm going to assume if you're here, you're already bought in on this. If not, find me afterwards so we can chat. But at a high level, in today's society, social media is the best way to get in front of your potential consumers so that they're aware of you. And then once they're aware, it continues to help build the relationship that will gently pull them along the purchase funnel to help grow your brand. But one of the keys to all marketing success, whether it's on social media or not, is creating compelling, engaging, high-quality content consistently, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today. As a quick reminder though, here's a quick recap about choosing social media platforms that we covered last year in our Social Media for Success session. When it comes to sharing content, you want to share it in as many places as it makes sense for the platform, the content, and the audience who is on that platform. But when it comes to social media, that does not mean you need to be on all platforms. Choose your social media platform strategically and start with just a couple, since it takes a lot of time to manage each one well. Like all good marketing, make this decision based on the objectives for your brand. Okay, so why is content so critical in the first place? We've all heard the phrase content is king, and it's true. Whether we like it or not, it is the foundation of online marketing and how you can use social media and digital marketing to connect with your customers, potential customers, and grow your brand. The reality is that content is the core of not only social and digital, but of human communication and connection. From the earliest times, sharing content and storytelling has been a part of civilization. It has and always will be foundational to relationships and success in life or business. Another reason content is critical: it drives real results when done right. Want more followers? Want more sales? Want to grow your online or offline community? Want more loyal customers? Want more intimately engaged brand ambassadors? More influencers who want to help promote your brand? All of those require content. Content is simply how we communicate, help, and share information with a goal to inspire, engage, and activate our audiences and communities to a desired action. This last part is important though, and a common mistake of those new to content marketing. Without driving action, content marketing is all for nothing. If you don't know what action you want your audience to take when they consume that piece of content you're putting out in the world, you should rethink sharing it at all. Lastly, having great content that is intentional also allows you to stand out in a crowded marketplace and differentiate yourself so that you're easily recognizable and thought about when the time is right. Think about the different types of friends you have. The low-key, lazy, rainy day friends, deep conversation friends, the party hard friends, work friends who may never cross over into your life outside of work, or maybe even those friends who only appear when they need something from you. Wait, hold on a minute. That last type of friend is exactly what we do not want to be seen as by our target consumers. And if we skip the value add content or storytelling and jump right to trying to sell them something, that's exactly how we'll come off. By regularly creating and sharing the right content for our brand and our target consumer, we will help them identify what kind of friend we are and where we fit into their already busy life. Because let's be honest, if your consumer happens to be a heavy whiskey drinker, odds are that he or she is going to have lots of whiskey brands trying to connect with her. Your content, unique brand voice, and style are what will help the right consumer gravitate towards you over others, pay more attention to what you have to say, and eventually even talk about your brand to others when you aren't right in front of them. And consistently great content is the best way to do just that. So let's get clear on what I really mean by content. Often people think we're just talking long form articles or blog posts here. When I say content, I'm referring to anywhere you are putting a written word in front of your consumer, whether it's a 1 sentence long or 4 pages long. Messaging on your website, social media posts, articles or blog posts, landing pages, consumer-facing emails and newsletters, pre-planned spoken word on videos or podcasts, etc. If you're putting something out in the world for others to see that will tie back to and represent your brand, that is content. If you start thinking this way, everything you put out into the world will drive more value for your brand. First, let's talk a little bit about 5 common content marketing mistakes. So, this first one is posting just to post. If you're feeling proud of yourself simply because you post something, anything on social media, X number of days per week, I have bad news for you. Not only is posting just to post not effective to help you reach your goals, but it wastes your time and can actually harm your brand when posting low quality, low engagement content. Why? Because if users are not engaging with your content, the social media platforms will stop showing it to them. And if your audience doesn't think there's value or quality in what you're sharing, they'll stop paying attention altogether. While I know planning takes time, it's short-term pain for long-term ongoing gain. So be intentional with every piece of content you post, plan your content ahead of time, and ask yourself if what you're posting would really make you stop scrolling through your feed to read more, click the link, watch the video, etc. Speaking of planning, this next one is all about balance. Yes, it's important to plan ahead and have a strategic plan when it comes to your overall content and social media posting of that content. It helps ensure you don't forget, drives consistency, and allows for strategic sharing of social content across all topics that matter to help drive your goals. While there are a million different content marketing plans out there and different approaches that work for different people, let me quickly show you my approach and one other. Okay, so here we are in the tool that I use. It's called Airtable. It's a free online tool. And I kind of categorize things a little differently. So I'll show you another content calendar approach in a minute that brings it all together in one document. But I prefer to kind of have, you see here, this is my email calendar. So you can see I have all the dates and I have exactly the maker emails, the consumer emails, what the topic was, everything kind of right there so that I'm scheduling them, planning them, making sure the types of things I'm talking about to them are not the same thing every single week. So this is my email tab. Then I have my full editorial calendar. This is my content for my website. So all of my articles, blog posts, videos, things of that nature. And so this is a little bit more comprehensive and I can turn it into a calendar view if I want to. And so this you can see I have the title, the publication date, the author. I also link it to my social calendar, which I'll show you momentarily, so that I know how many times I've posted about each piece of content to make sure that I'm leveraging each piece of content frequently and reusing them into the future and sharing them consistently. I also kind of label them if it's targeted more towards my consumer audience or my maker audience, and then what kind of post it is, how many times I've shared it. Call to action is really important to make sure, like I said, every piece of content you put out in the world, you have a clear call to action. Some of mine are empty there, but I promise you we have calls to action on all of them. The category that I'm talking about, so again, I can make sure I'm not just talking about one topic over and over again. So for you, for example, you would want to make sure you're not just only sharing cocktail recipes constantly, right? Cocktail recipes might be a content category. And so you'd want to keep track of, are we doing people profiles? Are we doing cocktail recipes? Are we doing events rundowns? Are we talking about things in our local community and town regularly, right? So you want to make sure your categories are alternating regularly. And then I have kind of approaches to help me see. You can see these icons over here. If it's published or if it's still waiting to be kind of published, if it's assigned to a writer or not, if I need to find a writer. And then I also have all my SEO stuff kind of in here too. And I have a whole separate SEO tab to make sure I'm paying attention to what my SEO keywords are for each blog post, that I'm not reusing them, what the keyword volume is, what the keyword difficulty is, all that kind of good stuff that we talk a ton about in Craft Alcohol Marketing Bootcamp. And then lastly, we have our social calendar. And so this is for my social media posting. And this you can see I typically view in more of a calendar view. And so this allows me to see how often am I posting. Am I posting regularly? I can click into any one of them and then kind of see exactly what the content is, where I posted it. There's a whole kind of field that you can open up here that gives you a lot more information on each one. You can put your images in there, all that kind of good stuff. So this is how I kind of manage my content. I kind of use a few different calendars. I have them linked through this tool, but that's how I manage my content calendar. There's also lots of other approaches. Content calendars, there are a bajillion out there. If you go title content calendar images or templates, you can be going down a Google rabbit hole forever. But the good thing about that is based on the way your brain works, there is an option out there for you. So you can see this one, they have everything in one calendar. They do it by the week, and they kind of have these topics of what's going on, what events are going on, what's local, what's PR, blog, all that kind of good stuff. This is a nice summary document. I do feel like if you go this approach, it's usually not going to be detailed enough for you to really help you keep an eye on your content, get all the pieces working the way you need to. So I would suggest if you start with something like this, and if Excel is kind of where you like to keep things, you probably need some backup tabs that let you go deeper with a lot more information for each one of these rows. So email, social media, local, PR, all of that kind of stuff that lets you kind of really use it as a working document and plan that stuff out. All right, so that's kind of planning, but back to our common mistake when it comes to planning. So like I said, all about balance, important to plan ahead, but one of the beautiful things about social media is the ability to share in real time and be inspired in the moment. And you don't want your plan to become so rigid that it takes that away. It can stifle creativity, hinder experimentation, and become too focused on the plan rather than the result and what your audience is actually enjoying and engaging with in the way that you need. Too often, I see people create a plan, set it, stick to it, and never revisit it again. Plans are made to be continually optimized and refined. Assess your plan regularly and focus on what actually matters to your audience and the results you are getting, then update your schedule or plan accordingly. Like we talked about earlier, you don't want to be that friend that seems constantly needy. Buy this, visit now, attend this event, check out this new product. If that's all you're ever doing, promoting and selling, you're going to turn off even your most loyal fans. The focus should always be on building relationships with your audience, which is one of the reasons it's so important to start content marketing early, well before you even have anything for them to spend their money on. There are two ways you can cultivate relationships and trust with your audience. First, let them in. Let them see the real human parts of your brand. Be transparent and share your raw, authentic self and story with them. This will build connection, and connection creates trust. Secondly, give first without expectation. Before you even think about asking anything of them, focus on what you can give to them, and then give, give, give. A good gauging question of whether or not you're creating value would be, would they pay for what I'm giving them for free? If the answer is yes, you're on the right track. Your ratio of product or sales promotion to value-driven content should be something like 1 to 4. So for every 4 pieces of entertaining, valuable content, you have 1 post promoting your product or service or event. So if your social media feed is chock full of bottle images and not much else, it's time to rethink your strategy so you avoid this common mistake. What is your unique brand story and voice? What does your brand stand for that differentiates you from your competitors and will attract your tribe? Does it shine through in all of your content? Is there consistency in all of your content? If you want to build and sustain a powerful brand, you must focus on brand consistency. Let me be clear though, consistency does not mean monotony, nor does it mean constantly talking about yourself. But everything you put out in the world should be consistent with your brand story, voice, and mission. This is so important. It's one of the very first courses in our Craft Alcohol Marketing Bootcamp. Why? Because beyond content, it should be infused in every single thing you put out into the world. Tone of voice, overall look and feel, fonts, color palettes, etc. Doing this is one of the keys to getting every piece of marketing to work harder for your brand. Consistency also means to consistently put out content and keep your promises. For example, if you say that there will be a new IGTV episode every week, there better be a new IGTV episode released every week. This creates trust and credibility with your audience and lets them know they can count on you to deliver. This last common mistake is related to our previous one. Once you understand yourself and have clear brand guidelines in place, it's time to turn your attention to truly understanding your ideal consumer. I know. You want to talk to all whiskey lovers at once. But by trying to appeal to everyone in the world who enjoys whiskey, your message has to be so generic that it ends up truly speaking to and connecting with no one. This is another one that's so important. We teach it early in our bootcamp, well before we get to any of the fun marketing tactics. So it's important that you do the work to truly understand your ideal target consumer, those people that you wish you could clone, and then focus your energy on talking to them. And don't worry, your message will halo onto a broader audience of consumers who have some similarities to them as well. So over time, the audience will be big enough to sustain you. By focusing in tightly on what those ideal consumers really want from you and how to engage them, you'll cut out so much waste in your marketing time, effort, and investment. These 5 common mistakes are rooted in foundational marketing best practices, or rather, lack thereof. I get it, you're busy, but skipping over the foundation of building your brand, understanding your target consumer, and tying your marketing goals and budget to your broader business goals will lead to subpar marketing results and a lot of frustration. Not just on social media, but in everything you do. So take the time to do the heavy lifting to get your marketing foundation built now, and all of your marketing will be easier and more effective going forward, including creating great content. So now that we know what not to do and the foundational work needed to ensure we avoid these common mistakes to make content marketing actually work for our brand, what about the content itself? While there's a lot that goes into creating great content, let's walk through 5 key elements to keep in mind. Your content should stand out as uniquely yours. A good litmus test here is if your logo or brand name wasn't on it, would your most loyal fans be likely to guess it's from your brand? If not, make sure to infuse more of your brand's voice, story, and perspective into it. Now, I'm not going to lie, creating original content these days is incredibly hard. So I'm not saying you can't get an idea for content from someone else, but it is important to make it uniquely yours before you share it with your audience so it continues to deepen their relationship with your brand. Compelling titles and openers. If you only do one thing differently with your content after today, make it this. 80% of people who see your content will read the headline or opening sentence on social media, but only 20% will actually click in to read the rest of your copy. So that headline needs to work hard for you to make sure you at least get that 20% to click through, if not more. Just think of the first 50 words or so of your content, including the headline, as being the most important. Some magazine editors even insist on seeing at least 30 headline ideas for every single story that a writer submits. That's how important this is. This is a quote from legendary copywriter Joe Sugarman. In fact, the standard rule of thumb is that however long it takes you to create the content, 50% of that time should be spent on the headline and opening paragraphs. So if you have 2 hours set aside for a new blog post, make sure one of those 2 hours is spent on brainstorming and revising those all-important introductory sections. Just think of the headlines you click on, the captions on social media that make you click to read the whole thing, and brainstorm a lot of them before deciding on which one or ones to try out. Because remember, the purpose of a headline is to get the first sentence read, and the purpose of the first sentence is to get the second sentence read. So those early sentences better be great. Next up, when it comes to creating great content, is leveraging storytelling. This framework is from the book Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, and it's worth getting to know so you can follow it yourself. The short version is that it is important that your consumer is the hero of your story, not your brand. It's also important that there is a palpable tension or stakes are high related to the problem that you are helping them solve, and that you're credible and can empathize with their problem. Lastly, it's important that you help them visualize the transformation they will achieve by following your plan and clear call to action. You help them visualize this both by painting a picture of what they will avoid and also clearly showing a happy ending once the transformation is achieved. And it is most effective when you do both of those things. As you can see in this example, an almost 3-hour movie, The Hunger Games, can be broken down into these 7 simple elements. It's up to you and the goals of that piece of content if you need to turn it into a full feature-length movie, a short article, or just summarize it in a social media blurb. But no matter the length, storytelling is your best friend when it comes to creating engaging content that will drive value. Let's be honest, while content is super important, we are all overwhelmed with content these days. So this next tip is all about the 3 S's. First, keep it simple. We all know this, but it's hard to do, especially when we're passionate or really well informed about something. But here's a shocking stat to keep in mind. A recent study shows that more than 50% of students at 4-year colleges could not understand the arguments of newspaper editorials or compare credit card offers effectively. And these are kids that are more literate than the average US adult. While I'm not suggesting you dumb down your content to the lowest common denominator, it is important to keep in mind, especially when we're geeking out on something we're passionate about. Overly complex content loses people. Don't make them work harder for it than they need to. To ensure your content is easily skimmable, make sure you're breaking up long blocks of text with compelling, descriptive subheaders and imagery. And if you don't already have this on your website, make sure you get a plugin that allows visitors to share any of your content to different social media sites with just the push of a button. And always remember to tell them to share if that's your primary goal. Speaking of telling your audience what you want them to do, our last tip is to always have a clear call to action. Consumers aren't mind readers, and people, especially busy people, generally don't do things out of the goodness of their heart. If you want them to do something, download, subscribe, share, comment, buy, visit, anything really. If you want them to do something, you have to make it clear by including a specific call to action. It should be direct, to the point, focused on the benefit they'll receive, easy to do, and obvious visually as they read or watch your content. And if you don't want them to do anything with your content, then remember to ask yourself why you're spending the time and money to create it in the first place. Now, I know, at this point, some of you are likely thinking, all I really just need to do is sell and promote. I don't have time to create other content. And what would I even create if I did? So for that first part, I hope by now you realize that you need to make time to create non-promotional content. If you don't, it will be hard to gain traction on social media or anywhere else since you won't be building relationships that over time will convert into sales. But on that second concern, what kind of content to create? Let's spend a minute on a few ideas particularly relevant to craft distillers like you, so you can create content that will help move consumers closer to purchase even when you're not promoting directly. This first one, craft education, is all about educating your consumers on what craft is, what it means, and why it's important. This is particularly important since everyone seems to have their own definition, so consumers need help figuring out what their definition is as well. We also all know that there is a lot of deceitful marketing going on out there from some of the big brands that make themselves sound like craft when they're really not. So if we, as craft makers, aren't doing the work to help educate consumers to see through that and make the best choices for their values, then who is going to educate consumers about it? It's important work that I strongly feel we should all be doing if we really want consumers to differentiate craft alcohol and choose it over big booze. The second topic of unique categories is particularly important if you're a craft maker who is creating some products that don't have a huge demand or clear understanding just yet. These might be things like Amari, moonshine, aquavit, honey spirits, infused spirits, bitters, etc. Things that those of us in the industry understand and know are up and coming, but others don't. They may not know about it at all, be a little confused, have misperceptions, or just generally need some help getting excited in figuring out when and how to drink it. No matter how good your product is, there has to be demand for it. And if it's in a relatively obscure or burgeoning category, then it's critical that you help create that category level demand before you start pitching your specific product. This next category is pretty self-explanatory: terminology, tips, and tricks. So creating content like 10 key terms every whiskey enthusiast should know, or the beginner's top 5 terms to finding a gin you'll love. Consumers love to feel like they're in the know. They like feeling informed, smart, and like they can be the expert among their friends. But they want it to be easy. So this is a great way to do just that. The benefit for your brand is that you're also helping them become smarter consumers. Helping them learn to better identify what they truly like and how to talk about it will help them find the products they'll truly enjoy and are interested in supporting more easily at restaurants, bars, and bottle shops. This kind of content can really help your products be better understood, sought out, and purchased. The fourth category is all about helping your consumers expand their palates. This is for those consumers who constantly order the same drink or claim they don't like a whole category of alcohol. Content like, if you don't like this, you should try that, or 5 reasons why you don't hate rum, even if you think you do. Helping consumers understand categories and products and getting them intrigued enough to want to start exploring it is a huge benefit for your brand. You could even get creative and tie content to promotional events in your tasting room, like a rum haters party where you drive traffic to convert them into rum lovers, and then either send them home with a bottle they bought or some silly little consolation prize if they still hate rum even after trying yours. Lastly, there's a category of content I call happy hour at home. This is all about encouraging consumers to drink more of your product faster, especially important in the spirits world where one bottle can sit on someone's bar for months before they run out. And if they already have your product at home, this is a great way to get them on your mailing list so you can regularly remind them to use up that delicious booze with the ideas you're sending their way. This can be cocktails or cocktail making approaches and techniques, or even party planning or hosting tips and tricks. If you do this well, there may even be an opportunity to sell them the barware or mixers as part of this effort. Trial is great, but it's much better to keep an existing customer than to get a new one. So if you can get your existing consumers to use your products more often and bring it to life in a delicious ways, you're more likely to get repeat purchases. And remember, For all 5 of these ideas, you don't have to do all of this alone. Some of this content can often really benefit from teaming up with others. Because if we all grow the pie together, our individual slices of the pie are going to get bigger too. So instead of creating unique content and competing with others doing the same, team up with other craft makers. Or even chip in with other craft makers to hire a craft alcohol influencer or writer to create an ongoing series related to a certain topic. It's a win-win, since they'll likely interview the brands chipping in for a piece, giving you some PR. Then the writer will get more traction for their piece, since all of you will share it on your own websites and social media channels, and it's ongoing content for your pipeline. Plus, consumers love hearing from third parties on this kind of stuff, so you're helping educate and inform without it coming directly from you. This can be a great long-term, ongoing, relatively inexpensive play that you invest in annually to just keep the fire burning on key topics relevant to the growth of the entire industry and ultimately your brand. I know, this is important stuff to grow your brand though, but don't worry, I have you covered on this. Okay, so the concern about not having enough time to create content. I want to challenge you on this by bringing to life an example of repurposing content smartly. You see, if you take the time to create engaging, high-quality content from the start, you can leverage that same piece of content in a myriad of ways to drive value for your brand over time. Let's say we have a blog post on making a bourbon old-fashioned cocktail because we just released a new bourbon. Look at all of these ideas for how to repurpose that one super simple piece of content. For just one article, in less than a few minutes, I came up with over 10 ideas for how to repurpose and distribute that content. Then, when you're ready to launch your next bourbon down the road, you can pull all of this great content back out, see what worked well, what didn't, rip and reapply with a new angle of the new bourbon, while reminding people that you ran out last time and still getting more traction out of that original content. The point here is to really push yourself before publishing, and honestly, before you even write the content, to think about all of the ways you could and should use the type of information related to this topic. So when you do write it and publish it, you're doing so with the end game in mind and optimizing the original piece of content to be used in as many different ways as possible. More value for less work. Just remember to stagger out all of the repurposing so you're not only talking about this one topic for 2 weeks straight. This is where having the content and social media calendar for planning really helps, because as soon as you publish that piece of content, you can schedule out all of the social media related to it out into the rest of the year and be done. To further address the concern over time to create good content, I also want to share a few of my favorite tools related to content creation and distribution. I highly suggest looking these up and integrating them into your marketing toolbox. My number one tip and tool is this: get on a social media scheduling tool. I prefer Later. I've used lots of other ones, but I prefer Later. Its ease of use, broad coverage, and features are fantastic. The good news is that the free plan works well for most people. While it takes a little time to initially get set up and get used to using a tool like this, I promise you it will save you tons of time and frustration once you're up and running. So it is well worth taking a couple of hours to get it working for you. Beyond that, there's Repost, our favorite Instagram content resharing app, so you can reshare other people's content that fits well with your brand. Then there's Canva, an amazing free tool to make even the least creative of us look like graphic designers with the simplicity of templates and drag and drop functionality. Lastly, there's StoryChief, which is great to take blog posts and distribute them across multiple platforms, all with the touch of a button. It majorly simplifies content sharing for free and very low price plans. And there are a ton of additional resources from ADI and the Crafty Cask to help you on your journey here, including a special 20% discount on all craft alcohol marketing bootcamp courses through the end of the month for attendees of the ADI conference with the promo code ADI. To wrap up, let's get clear on next steps. First, Get that marketing foundation solid. Whether you're just starting out or 10 years old, having a clearly defined brand story, voice, target consumer, marketing goals, and budget will supercharge all of your marketing and minimize waste. Next, audit the content you already have to understand what's working and what isn't. Then, armed with that knowledge, create a content calendar and plan. Resource your plan accordingly, get set up on time-saving tools like Social Media Scheduler, and you're on your way. Just make sure to schedule time to regularly review how things are going and optimize your approach as needed. Do this frequently, especially early on while you're just getting started. While I know you have a million things on your plate, putting off your content strategy is not a good idea. The sooner you start sharing engaging content, the faster you'll build your audience and turn them from passively aware to actively interested in signing up, visiting, buying, and more. I promise, if you clear a little time off your calendar and focus here for 4 to 6 hours, you'll be well on your way to creating more value with everything you do so your marketing is working harder and driving real results for your brand. Okay, let's answer some questions that we haven't already covered in the chat. If we don't get to your questions now, or if you want to go a bit more in depth on any marketing topic, you can set up a free one-on-one session with me during the conference by going to bit.ly/marketinghelpline, capital M, capital H. It will direct you right to my calendar. You can grab a spot that works for you. We'll Zoom each other and I will give you free advice and help for whatever you need on marketing. Thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of the conference.